In the quiet coastal town of Norfolk, Virginia, where the salty air mixed with the hum of naval ships, Lieutenant Emily Carter had always felt at home. The town was small, with neat rows of houses lining the streets near the massive naval base. Folks there knew the rhythm of military life, the early mornings, the deployments, and the sacrifices that came with serving. Emily, a 32-year-old Navy officer, had grown up in a similar place, the daughter of a retired sailor. She was tough, with a quiet strength that came from years of proving herself in a world dominated by men. Her dark hair was always pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform was spotless, a symbol of her dedication. Emily had risen through the ranks quickly, earning her spot as a communications specialist on the USS Theodore Roosevelt, one of the Navy's mighty aircraft carriers. She was brave, the kind of woman who didn't flinch in a crisis, but she carried her emotions deep inside like a locked chest. On this fateful day in late summer, the carrier was docked at the base for routine maintenance. The sun beat down on the steel deck, and the crew bustled about, preparing for an upcoming exercise. Admiral Harlan Brooks commanded the carrier group. He was a grizzled veteran in his late 50s with a reputation for being hard-nosed and old school. Brooks had seen wars and commanded fleets, but he had a blind spot when it came to women in the service. To him, they were still a novelty, not equals. Emily had crossed paths with him before, but today, things would boil over. It started in the briefing room below deck. Emily was presenting her report on a new communication protocol she developed, one that could cut response times during emergencies by half. She stood tall, her voice steady as she explained the details. This system integrates satellite feeds with real-time encryption, ensuring secure links even in jammed environments, she said, pointing to the charts on the screen. The room was filled with officers, mostly men, some nodding in approval. But Admiral Brooks leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a smirk on his face. When Emily finished, he cleared his throat. "Lieutenant Carter, that's all well and good on paper. But out there on the water, we need real sailors, not some gadget dreamed up in a lab. You think this fancy tech will hold up when the waves are crashing and the enemy's closing in?" Emily felt a sting, but she kept her composure. "Sir, I've tested it in simulations and field trials. It's proven." "Proven?" Brooks interrupted, his voice rising. He stood up, towering over the room. "I've been at sea longer than you've been alive, girl. You women come in here with your degrees and your ideas, but when push comes to shove, you fold. Remember that incident last year? A female pilot panicked during a storm, cost us time and resources. I won't have that on my ship." The room went silent. Emily's cheeks burned, not from embarrassment, but from anger. She had heard whispers like this before, mocked for her gender, underestimated because she didn't fit the old mold. But she was no quitter. "With all due respect, Admiral, that pilot saved her crew, and my system could prevent similar issues." Brooks laughed, a harsh bark that echoed. "Respect? You earn that, Lieutenant. You're off this carrier, effective immediately. Pack your things and get back to shore. We don't need distractions." Emily's heart pounded. Thrown off for speaking up, she wanted to argue, to fight back, but years of discipline held her tongue. She saluted stiffly and left the room, the door clicking shut behind her like a final judgment. As she walked the corridors, crew members averted their eyes. Some whispered, "Tough break," but no one stood up for her. It hurt deep down like a betrayal from the family she'd chosen. Back on the dock, Emily stepped onto solid ground, her duffel bag over her shoulder. The base loomed behind her, a maze of ships and buildings. She drove to her small apartment in town, a modest place with a view of the harbor. Sitting on her couch, she let the tears come, quiet, controlled sobs, not for the Admiral's words, but for the injustice. She'd sacrificed so much, missed holidays, strained relationships, even her chance at a family. And for what? To be dismissed like yesterday's news. But Emily was strong. She wiped her eyes and stared out at the water. This wasn't the end. She'd prove them wrong somehow. Little did she know, the sea held secrets and one was about to surface. As the sun dipped low, Emily's phone buzzed. It was her old friend, Captain Mark Riley, from the submarine USS Virginia. "Heard what happened," his message read. "Hang in there, the truth has a way of coming up." Emily smiled faintly. Mark had always believed in her, but how could he help from beneath the waves? That night, as she lay in bed, the weight of the day pressed on her. She thought of her father, who had taught her to stand tall. "The Navy's like the ocean," he'd say. "It tests you, but it rewards the steadfast." Emily closed her eyes, determined to weather this storm. Tomorrow she'd start fighting back, filing a report, gathering support. But fate had other plans, ones that would shake the entire base. Emily woke to the sound of waves lapping against the pier outside her window. The small town of Norfolk felt even smaller that morning, its streets quiet under a gray sky. She made coffee in her tiny kitchen, the aroma filling the air as she replayed the Admiral's words in her mind. Girl! Distraction! It cut deep, reminding her of every time she'd been overlooked, passed over for promotions, sidelined in training. But Emily wasn't one to wallow. She was emotionally strong, forged in the fire of loss. Her mother had died young, leaving her to care for her siblings while her father was at sea. She decided to head to the base's administrative office. Dressed in civilian clothes, a simple jeans and sweater, she drove through the town, passing the familiar diner where sailors gathered for breakfast. Inside the office, she filed a formal complaint against Admiral Brooks for discrimination. The clerk, an older woman named Mrs. Hargrove, looked sympathetic. I've seen this before, dear. It takes courage to speak up, but be prepared. It might get rough. Emily nodded. I'm ready. But as she left, doubt crept in. Brooks was powerful with friends in high places. What chance did she have? Back home, she called her sister, Sarah, who lived in a suburban neighborhood nearby. Sarah was her rock, a teacher with a warm heart. Come over, Sarah said. We'll talk it out. At Sarah's house, with its picket fence and blooming garden, Emily poured out her story over tea. He just threw me off like I was nothing, after all I've given. Sarah hugged her. You're everything, Em. You've saved lives with your work. Remember that mission last year? Your comms setup got those pilots home safe. Emily felt a spark of warmth. It was true, she'd sacrificed sleep, relationships, even her health for the Navy, but the mockery stung. I just want justice, she whispered. As evening fell, Emily walked along the beach near the base. The sand was cool under her feet and the horizon stretched endless. She thought of her journey, enlisting at 18, proving herself through boot camp, earning her commission. Men had mocked her then, too, calling her princess during drills. But she'd outlasted them, her strength quiet but unyielding. Suddenly her phone rang. It was an unknown number. Lieutenant Carter, this is Ensign Lopez from the Roosevelt. I saw what happened. You're not alone. A few of us think the Admiral's out of line. Emily's heart lifted. Thank you, spread the word discreetly. Word spread quietly through the base. Crew members whispered in the mess halls, sharing stories of Brooks' biases. Emily spent the next hours on her laptop, researching protocols for appeals. She felt a fire building inside, a determination to redeem her name. But then came the backlash. A knock at her door revealed 2 MPs. Ma'am, Admiral Brooks requests your presence. At his office on base, Brooks sat behind a massive desk, his face stern. Filing complaints, are we? That's insubordination. Retract it or face consequences. Emily stood tall. Sir, it's my right. Your actions were unjust. He leaned forward, voice low. You think you're special. Women like you come and go. The Navy's no place for fragile egos. The words hit like a wave, but Emily didn't break. I'm not fragile, sir. I'm resilient. She left, head high, but inside the emotional toll mounted. That night alone, she cried again, not in defeat, but in resolve. Meanwhile, beneath the Atlantic, the USS Virginia lurked silent. Captain Riley paced the control room. He'd known Emily for years. She'd been his protege. Hearing of her humiliation, he fumed. We can't let this stand, he told his XO. But submarines followed strict protocols, no surfacing without orders. Yet Riley had a plan, one that would break every rule for justice. Back on shore, Emily met with allies, a group of officers in a quiet park suburb. They shared evidence, emails, recordings of Brooks' rants. We'll back you, they said. Emily felt hope, but danger loomed. Brooks was plotting, too. As Part 2 drew to a close, Emily stared at the sea from her window. A storm brewed on the horizon, mirroring her turmoil. Little did she know, help was rising from the depths. Days turned into a tense wait in Norfolk. The town buzzed with rumors from the base, whispers of unrest among the ranks. Emily threw herself into her fight, meeting supporters in hidden spots, a suburban coffee shop, a park bench under oak trees. She was building a case, her emotional strength shining through. Sacrifices defined her, foregoing vacations, enduring loneliness, but now they fueled her. One afternoon at the local library, she pored over Navy regulations. A young sailor approached. Ma'am, I was there in the briefing. The Admiral's wrong. Your system's brilliant. It could save lives. Emily smiled, touched. Thank you, that's why I do this. But injustice piled on. Brooks suspended her pay, citing disruptive behavior. Bills loomed and doubt nagged. At Sarah's house over dinner, Emily confessed, what if I lose everything? Sarah squeezed her hand. You've already won by standing up. Show them your heart. Inspired, Emily organized a discreet rally in a community hall on the town's edge. Officers shared stories. A female medic ignored, a pilot mocked. Emily spoke last. "We've sacrificed too much to be silenced. Let's demand respect." The room erupted in quiet applause. Emily felt growth, a shift from victim to leader, but Brooks struck back, leaking false stories to the base newsletter. Carter's ego endangers missions. Mockery spread. Some called her the Admiral's reject. Hurt, Emily walked the beach alone. Waves crashed, echoing her inner storm. She remembered a deployment where she'd fixed a critical link under fire, earning medals. "I'm not weak," she whispered to the wind. Underwater, Riley's sub patrolled. He gathered his crew. "Emily Carter's one of us. Brooks crossed a line. We're breaking protocol to surface and testify." The crew hesitated, risking careers, but nodded. Riley's plan, surface near the base, demand a hearing. It was mad, but for justice. On shore, Emily faced a hearing. In a stark room, Brooks presided. "Lieutenant, your claims are baseless. Retract or face discharge." Witnesses faltered under his glare. Emily's turn came. "I've given my all, sleepless nights, risks in the field. Your bias dishonors the uniform." Brooks sneered. Emotional outburst, case closed. Emily left, devastated but unbroken. That evening, as she sat on her porch watching the harbor, a ripple appeared far out. Something massive breached the surface. A nuclear submarine, the USS Virginia, flags waving defiantly. The town stirred, sirens wailed. Emily's phone exploded with calls. Her journey to redemption had just escalated. Word count, 1,502. Part 4, the surface breach. Chaos erupted in Norfolk as the USS Virginia surfaced dramatically, its sleek hull cutting through the water like a knife. The base went into lockdown. Helicopters buzzed overhead. Emily, heart racing, drove to the pier. Crowds gathered, townsfolk, sailors, media vans from nearby cities. Captain Riley emerged on the conning tower, megaphone in hand. "This is Captain Mark Riley. We surface in protest of Admiral Brooks' actions against Lieutenant Emily Carter. We demand a full inquiry." Emily pushed through the crowd, her eyes meeting Riley's. "Mark, why?" He climbed down, embracing her like a brother. "Because your family and justice matters." The emotional beat hit hard. Emily's sacrifices validated. Riley explained. The sub had intercepted classified comms proving Brooks' pattern of discrimination. By surfacing, they broke protocol, risking court-martial, but exposed the truth. Brooks arrived, furious. "This is treason, secure that sub." But the crew stood firm, sharing documents. Media captured it all. Emily addressed the press. "I've been mocked, underestimated, but today we fight for every overlooked sailor." Backlash came. Brooks arrested Riley's team. Emily visited them in holding, tears in her eyes. "Your sacrifice, I won't forget." Riley grinned. "Worth it, Em, show them your strength." The town rallied. Petitions circulated in suburbs, small-town diners. Emily testified before a hastily formed board, her voice steady. "Admiral Brooks abused his power. My work saves lives. Don't let bias win." Evidence mounted. Recordings, witness statements. Emily's character shone, brave, resilient, but Brooks fought dirty, threatening allies. As tension peaked, Emily confronted him privately. "Why hate us so much?" Brooks faltered. "The Navy's changing, too fast." Emily saw his fear, a man clinging to the past. "Change is strength," she said softly. The board deliberated. Outside, the sub remained docked, a symbol. Emily waited on the beach, waves gentle now. Her journey had forged her anew, stronger, wiser. The inquiry's verdict came on a crisp morning in Norfolk. The base auditorium was packed, sailors, townsfolk, even Emily's sister. Admiral Brooks sat rigidly as the board announced, "Guilty of misconduct, relieved of command." Cheers erupted. Brooks' face paled, his empire crumbled. Emily stood, emotions swirling, relief, vindication. But she felt no joy in his fall, only closure. Riley and his crew were reprimanded but reinstated, their bold act hailed as heroic. The sub's surfacing became legend, a twist exposing deeper corruption. Brooks had buried reports of his biases for years. Emily was promoted, her system adopted fleet-wide. At a ceremony on the carrier, now under new command, she received applause. "Lieutenant Commander Carter," the new admiral said, "your strength inspires us." Emily addressed the crowd. "We all sacrifice for this life. Let's honor each other." In a satisfying twist, Brooks confessed privately to Emily, "I was wrong, you earned my respect." He retired quietly, the truth exposed. Back in her apartment, Emily watched the harbor. The sub dived gracefully, Riley waving farewell. She smiled, redeemed. The small town felt bigger now, her home forever changed.